everybody saw that there was something wrong with the UW offensive line these first two games. No one saw this coming. Mike Markinson relieved of his duties on Sunday by Brett Bielema. He's promoting Bart Miller, an offensive quality control coach, a young guy, into a pretty prominent spot. I mean, you're talking about offensive line at the University of Wisconsin. This is a big position. I'm here, Adam Mertz, joined by Tom Mulhern, Tom Oates, the Wisconsin State Journal. Mully, what's at stake here with a move like this? 2 games in a season, not just a season, but his career here.
Well, I think it's a classic boomer bust decision. I think it's got a chance of salvaging the season and turning it around. I think it's got a chance of blowing up in his face. And, you know, let's look back 1 year when Bob Bostad, widely recognized as one of the best college offensive line coaches in the nation, now with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and now you got a guy fresh off being a quality control or grad assistant, whatever you want to call him. That's a pretty dramatic change. And to do it, it's not totally unprecedented, but it's pretty rare for a head coach to pull the trigger like this quick into the season. Initial reaction from you, Otzi, on this? I mean, is this panic? I mean, a lot of people from the outside see panic, instability, however you want to say it.
I don't, you can paint it, color it any way you want. From the outside, it looks like panic. And, Brett Bielema talked about, people don't know what goes on the inside and all that kind of. Well, fine, but from the outside, it looks like a panic move. The Wisconsin losing its identity, can't knock people off the ball. For whatever reason, Mike Markinson was a bad fit at the University of Wisconsin. I mean, to get back to what Mully said, boomer bust. Mike Markinson was a line coach for 14 years in the SEC, and now you've got to hire. Now your line coach is a guy who's never coached a game as an offensive line coach at this level. I just don't. It's a risk. But ultimately, I think Mike Markinson was a bad fit. I don't think he's a bad coach. I think he was a bad fit. And Bielema is attempting to rectify that situation. We'll see how it comes out.
And Brett talked about that this was actually on his mind a little bit, this decision in February when he was kind of going through his staff, but felt uncomfortable putting 2 young guys in there like that. I mean, you got 6 new coaches. Is it a thing of where you just can't cover all the bases on this stuff and maybe too much is going through your head when you're trying to fill that many positions? I'm not buying that. I mean, the 2 most critical positions he had to fill were offensive coordinator and offensive line coach. And some could argue where they rank, which was number 1 and which was number 2. And they had a host of a wide variety of candidates. I think it's a little revisionist history if he's going to say that Bart Miller was a finalist or close to being the offensive line coach. I mean, they had candidates from all over the country. I think he's trying to pretty up this situation right now.
I guess like I said before, I think it's all about fit at Wisconsin. Certain styles of coaching, certain techniques of coaching work at Wisconsin with the style of ball Wisconsin plays, and I don't think Mike Markinson, it was the style of coach they need to coach the offensive line here. I put that on Bielema. I put that on the hiring process, and I'm not going to sit here and make excuses for him. Mully's right. Those were the 2 most important positions, the 2 best coaches that left, and 2 of the most important positions on any football coaching staff. And ultimate care has to go into those, and probably did. I think he put a lot into that, regardless of how anyone wants to paint it. And I think he just made a bad hire in this case. And I don't even, again, not because the guy's a bad football coach, not a good fit. And the key here is he talked about bridge, and they're trying to get back to what they had with Bostad. And it's important to note that Miller's a Bostad disciple, and I think he's trying to get back to that last year and the way they did things last year. I can't believe this offensive line was as bad as they played the last 2 games. I mean, there had to be something else at work here in my mind. Maybe it's not. They got 3 new starters, so there's going to be an adjustment period. But I can't believe they were that bad. They look lost out there as offensive linemen. I can only guess they were struggling with techniques they were being taught. And you look at Bob Bostad. I always thought that his great strength was the technique. These guys were unbelievable the last 2 years, the way they moved around everything. You heard rumblings through the springtime that this was not an easy transition, that there was a lot of questioning maybe about which direction things are going. But what do you see technique-wise on the field, and where are the weak spots? They got 4 guys back who have some starting experience. Heisman Trophy finalist in Monty Ball, and you can't run the football. Well, I'm not going to pretend I'm smart enough to break down offensive line technique in games, but you can see getting no push off the ball. You can see a guard getting knocked backward onto his butt on a 3rd and 1. When's the last time you ever saw anybody at Wisconsin do that? And like I said, I think there's some talent there.
when they were without Peter Kahns, they stuck in Ryan Groy at the last 3 games last season. A Big Ten title game against Michigan State and a great defensive front. That line played pretty well, and I thought that was going to bode well for the future, but there's obviously been some adjustment issues here, and I can go back to some of the techniques. I don't think these players totally embraced the techniques they were being taught.
There seemed to be, like Mully, I'm not going to sit here and be an expert on offensive line play, but it might have been a footwork issue. There did not appear to be a lot of explosion off the ball. It was more catching than more receiving than delivering, and I think you could see that, and it just wasn't working.
What about personnel? Are you comfortable with the 5 guys they have out there right now? Do you expect to see some changes?
No, I think if you look at their last 3 or 4 lines, they were mostly every position was filled by a future NFL lineman. I don't think that's the case right now, and there's a couple linemen there that you can look at and wonder if they have an NFL future, and that hasn't been the case around here. So I do think the recruiting and the talent level has fallen off a little bit, but that's where coaching comes in. We've always seen in this program is players get better and better and better, and that's where coaching comes in. And now there's been an interruption in coaching, apparently a major change in coaching style and philosophy and techniques, and it's really had a negative effect on the line.
And by the way, the Badgers actually have a game this week. Also, Utah State that's coming in. It's a pretty good team, isn't it? I mean, they beat Utah on Friday at home in overtime, 12-game losing streak snap. They're a team that in the WAC is expected to contend. They're kind of dynamic.
I was impressed with their defense, and since we're talking about Wisconsin's offensive line, their defensive front, I thought had some big guys, and I thought they were pretty aggressive and played physical. So that's going to be a good early test for Wisconsin's new offensive line philosophy. So and a quarterback who made some plays, obviously, and to beat Utah got my attention. I think they're going to come in here brimming with confidence.
Yeah, we were, sitting out in beautiful Portland, Oregon, and that game was on TV, of course, and got to watch them. And I remember watching them last year when they had Auburn on the ropes, and should have beaten them. It's a kind of a classic West Coast team with a lot of speed at a lot of various positions, and I think we've all, including quarterback, and we've all seen that those kinds of teams have given Wisconsin a test in recent years.
Stay tuned. We'll have coverage all week, kind of the fallout from Mike Markuson being relieved of his duties, and all the lead up to the Utah State game here on Saturday night.